South Africa, more especially in the mining sector, focusing on the so-called critical minerals, so that we put the agenda of minerals on reference, the social dialogue in South Africa, so that they can be paid and they get the provision. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to start. I mean, in a nutshell, or in simpler terms, geopolitics simply means competition between the developed countries. So the geopolitics of the minerals, the so-called critical minerals, are geographically spread, more especially in countries that they cannot actually refine them. And the developers are mainly based in the north, the so-called global north. And then at the moment, there is because they don't have access, free access to these minerals, they are now competing. If you look at the images of China as a competitor to countries in the global north that in the past they have actually dominated the production of minerals and other components, are now competing with China against the so-called China Road and Belt Initiative, wants to connect Eurasia with South America and Africa to land and sea and air. So we are seeing a development of new policies. For example, the European Commission's Critical Mineral Act, which I think it has made the term critical minerals more, I don't know, than it was in the past, because all of a sudden the South African mineral platinum is becoming a critical mineral. There was a time in history where our platinum production goes up. That is when the technology of those catalysts was introduced. So we have a booming economy because of platinum. Now it is declining, but it is called the critical minerals, simply because these countries want to have a supply, a guaranteed supply of minerals for the development of the components in the global north. Because we are caught in the center of transition, because for us to transition, we need these minerals. The minerals are used to manufacture cars, and progressing the proliferation of Chinese cars, electric cars in South Africa, and they are used for wind turbines. The rare earth minerals are used in wind turbines, and Africa is sitting on minerals that can actually produce the lithium-ion battery. Somebody just mentioned lithium-ion battery, but we don't have the capacity to develop those batteries, and that is a challenge. So the only people who can do that is China and European countries. That is the challenge that we are facing, and we need to get out of. Because Africa alone can do that, can produce that. South Africa is sitting on the resources of manganese, which is one of the 5 elements required for that particular lithium-ion battery. Mozambique, graphite, DRC, Zambia using on nickel and cobalt, and those are the 5 minerals that actually can be for lithium-ion battery. So, like I said, we are caught in a competition in which we are not participating, and our governments really have no plans to develop that. So any person who told you that we have an opportunity to develop renewable energy in Africa will definitely be lying. There is no country in the global north that has a policy that says it's going to develop Africa. It's us who have to come together and pressurize our government, because of the individualistic borders. Everybody has an opportunity to negotiate with the individual country and have access to those particular minerals. So we have come up with that, because they are moving away from the UN SDG 17 that requires us to put our hands together and see that we resolve climate change. But then as a result now, people are using as a competition to develop new equipment that we buy. Because our, for example, in Zimbabwe, we are focusing on transition from coal to renewables, but our transition is finance-based. We want to get money and procure finished products that have traces of our minerals in them. We have no intentions of actually our policy to benefit our own mineral. So that is the issues that we are facing, and ours is to ensure that we come together and develop governance mechanism that will ensure that we don't really have the historical problems that we experience with minerals in South Africa and Africa, as we know, the legacy of mining. So for now, I can stop there, but I will further elaborate. Go better.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Taking from that, looks like Africa is caught up within the very complex geopolitical dynamics. And I want to hear from Sama. How can African nations balance the rising global demand for critical minerals with the need to safeguard workers' rights in local communities and the environment?
Thank you very much, Saiba, and greetings to everyone in the audience. So to start with, to answer your question, I'll go back to the theme for our panel. I'll try to look at tackling the challenges, because right from yesterday, as we have the AGM to the opening ceremony, there's been a word that has been repeated, the community. And even in the theological reflection that we have now, we heard that we cannot come here to say we are the voice of the voiceless, because as civil society organization, our theme has been power to the people. And that's why we're hearing Amanda Awetu. In Bemba, we say Amaka Ubantu, because if we continually come and sit in the audience, we are basically sharing the challenges that we already know, but we are not coming up with a solution to ensure that the communities that we're talking about begin to engage. When we talk about, it's a sad story about the accident that happened in October, because it just reminds us of what is happening in many other African countries. In Zambia, we've had same cases at Senseli where a lot of miners died. We could not even account for some. We've had a lot of accidents happening, and almost every day it is the story. So I want to begin by saying, for us, we are a local NGO working in rural Zambia. And the first time that we attended the army, we came with children. Because as we are talking about the critical mineral and energy transition, we are saying it will not be just if we don't address the issues of human rights. So as we are talking about Zambia, we are talking about Congo. Already there are about 40,000 children working in the cobalt industry, which is child labor. But those children don't even have the space in this platform. And when we talk about issues of the energy transition, it is basically coming from the climate change perspective. Because we are saying we've got global warming, we've got issues of reducing the carbon emissions, basically the degree to 1.5. And one way we're going to reduce that is to transition from the use of fossil fuels to the use of renewable energy, whereby we stop using cars that are diesel and petrol powered to electric vehicles. We stop using electricity, which is powered by coal, to using solar. And also we harness the wind energy. So what that is doing, it is presenting an opportunity for Africa. Why? Because if we could manufacture within the African countries, already we are talking about the collaborations. It is going to give us an opportunity to grow our economies. Already we are being told that Africa has got a significant share of the global minerals. We've got about 92% platinum, there's about 56% cobalt, 54% manganese. I'm coming from a province where almost everywhere you go there's manganese. So if we have these minerals, what is the challenge? Where is the problem? So the challenge that we are talking about is as civil society organizations, as change actors, how much are we communicating with the people that we are calling artisanal and small-scale miners? So when they are called informal workers, what are we doing to shift from them being informal to being formal? So in most African countries, you find that the scenario that we have, where there are investors, mainly foreign investors, it is commercial mining, well organized, they're decent jobs. The government gives them attention because they are the revenue drivers. They are very significant, I call them key partners. But where the local people are trying to benefit from their minerals, one, there's no information. So they're going to start mining without any mining knowledge. They don't have geological information, they don't have the financing capacity, they don't have environmental knowledge. So you're going to find people working in hazardous conditions. And again, as civil society, we have seen the environmental impacts. So we are looking at how are we going to help the local people to benefit from their minerals, but doing it in a way that is sustainable and also not bringing other problems, because also where there's informal mining, we are finding issues of child labor. So you will find that as civil society, maybe we are not looking at how do we bring into our education curriculum the issue of mining, so that the people that we are talking about, the local communities, the artisanal small-scale miners, are not just going there for trial and error. They are mining, and when there is no minerals, they will leave the trenches open. The same is happening with other maybe licensed mines. So you find that, like where I'm coming from, recently we had a case of pollution. It's not just affecting the environment, but also the health of people. In Chingola recently, there was an accident where emissions were acidic acid was released in water for Chabanyama River. So the minister went there and said the people should not drink water in this river. So they will be supplying water, but there's also biodiversity. There was fish that died. The same Chingola, you find that there was a heritage area called Hippo. The hippos are gone. So now you find that because as Africa, now looking at the opportunities which are there, the opportunities are, if we move as one voice, looking at the Africa Mining Vision, the Agenda 63, and we come up with policies that are protecting Africa in terms of the African people. What do we call as decent jobs for the African people? Can we have universities that are taking in people regardless of the education background? Because our education is meant to believe that only a person with a grade 12 certificate, a PhD, can be in the university, or maybe someone who has qualified a certain standard can be in the university. You'll find that the local people are cut off from accessing information which they need to transform. And then again, we look at how are we protecting our heritage? Can we have mining in the forest? Can we have foreign investors come and do mining in a national park? Can they do mining near heritage sites or where there's a river? So you find that we are not putting in place policies that are protecting the local people, but rather we're putting in place policies that are meant to bring in the foreign income. But then again, when we get that foreign income, it is going back to paying our debt. So I'll conclude by saying that we need to look at this issue from a human rights-based approach, because if we look at it from the human rights, business principles and guiding principles on human rights, we are going to find that the community will be protected. They will be aware of their rights and they will stand up for themselves. We also have the issue of legal representation. Where I'm coming from, there's a mine about 11,600 square kilometers. These are people who have lived there and they call it ancestral land. They don't even have any form of paper to show for it, because they never expected that in future someone will come and say, you don't belong here. So those people face displacement. So now if they understand their rights, they'll be able to come out and speak for themselves. But also the people who are in mining are elite. So if they threaten them with legal cases, who is going to represent them? So again, that is where you find that the communities are standing on their own, they don't have legal representation, they don't know all these concepts that we're talking about, because almost every month there will be a new concept which will start from local level at regional level, but it will hardly trickle down to the community. And so the policy gap starts not only at implementation, but also at formation. The people are not involved. They don't even know what this transition is and what we are talking about. Even the question we are asking, critical for who, we also need to ask ourselves. Is answering this question critical for us or also for the people that are right in the communities where mining is taking place? So for now, I'll end here, and as I wind up, maybe if I'm given another opportunity, I'll talk about the opportunities that exist and the innovations that we can bring to the energy transition for communities to benefit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, there is pointed out a very important point about not only having policies and laws in place, but also effectively implementing and enforcing those policies. That requires a strong institutions to be able to enforce the laws to protect people and their land. I hope you won't mind if I call you Kay.
That's how everyone.
So, given the raising global demand for critical minerals, there are different views and perspectives on the fast-tracking, licensing or permitting for critical minerals. In your view, is this compatible with meaningful stakeholder engagement that about, and does that allow effective due diligence of the companies that are being operating in
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas, and hello everyone. Before starting, I will say a few words about publish what you pay, because some of you don't know. The first thing, I come from Madagascar, and I hope this thing is Madagascar, because every year I keep coming to the army, I keep asking, where is Madagascar? We're part of Africa, being outside of it, but yeah, that's me. So Publish What You Pay is, it's the widest platform, a group of civil society organizations and grassroots communities that exist for more than 20 years, and we are really striving for communities to benefit from their natural resources. And we've been known for pushing for transparency and accountability in the extractive minerals, extractive industry, accountability in terms of revenue transparency mainly. We've been standing also for a cleaner and fairer energy future, and now we are going to launch our 5-year strategy until 2030, which really puts communities at its heart. So that's why I totally agree with what Nsama outlined. We need to put communities in the heart of business, because it's still a business. For the moment, it's profit before people, and we have to reverse it. And that's what we are standing for. So, in our view, a just energy transition doesn't have to leave anyone behind, but for that to happen, we need to have strong safeguards. So now coming to a question, Silas. Fast tracking, that's a word that we are hearing a lot these days, like we are in the midst of an era of critical minerals boom. Critical for whom? That's the question as well, because we know that producing countries are most of the time left outside the value chain. They are standing at the bottom, only receiving peanuts from that industry. This has to change as well. So, in the heart of this boom, some are wanting, to fasten the process, to maybe fasten the profit as well. Well, in one hand, that may be a good thing. Some will argue, that fast tracking will accelerate the process and really, accelerate the energy access in some countries and maybe accelerate the transition. But once again, we have to be here. We have to be critical. There won't be any transition if there is no access first. That's one thing. And most of our countries in Africa, I don't know for yourself, but in Madagascar, access to energy is like the first closed door for the moment. We cannot transition yet. We're still in the dark. That's one thing missing. So I think that acceleration will be illusional if you don't have access first. And then, in my view, it really poses significant risks in terms of people consultation, in terms of, free, prior, and informed consent. We are all aware of this. In the conventional meaning of mining already, as it is in a perspective. So if we go in fast tracking those licensing critical minerals, we risk greater damage, I would say, for our communities, greater risk for their voices not to be heard in a proper way. So this is really something which is dangerous, I would say, without proper framework and without proper safeguards, procedures in place. So yeah, we can think of it, but we need to take proper measures for really ensuring that people's interests are really taken into account. And here I'd like to say that we need to keep in mind as well the rights for communities to say no. If they don't agree to the exploitation of their minerals, of their resources, companies and governments must obey. That's logical. If we are in this logic of the people power, that should be the case. But to sum up, I would say, without really those safeguards and measures, fast tracking licensing may be harmful for our communities, so we need to change. And just a minute, Silas, before you take the mic from me, even if it's touched here, I wanted to bounce back on what Shane highlighted on the geopolitical side, because we are living in an era of danger right now, and I'm thinking of the US, and the war between the US and China, etc., and critical minerals, because our countries for reaching resources are, in the middle of this war as well, and this has impact on our community. So I just wanted to get back to this and say that this war on critical minerals emphasizes double standards, There are standards for the global north and there are standards for the global south, where we are the one, having the resources. We are the one not benefiting from it. So as a reminder, in the US, for instance, the Biden Inflation Reduction Act introduced disguised protectionism and in terms of tax incentives worldwide with their allied countries. Now, Trump's tariffs plan has also stripped away any pretense of asserting economic nationalism. And I don't know if you've seen, but our colleagues from Tax Justice Network recently published an op-ed speaking about that. And they outlined very interestingly how Trump's tax policies will force countries to surrender sovereignty over taxing US multinationals, reviving colonial era practices, by privatizing imperial powers tax control, by undermining global reforms, which was still in its implementation phase, of course, and threatening punitive measures like trade tools or tariffs against nations defending their taxing rights. So what I wanted to say is that for critical minerals to benefit Africa, it's really among our governments to make the right decisions. And we have to claim for our place, for our seat on the table of those negotiations and see what fits us, what really suits our populations, our communities, and claim for what we deserve. And this goes not only in terms of policy, for ensuring decent jobs, technology transfer, creation of value chains, but also about trade. And tariffs, trade agreements are inequitable for the moment. We need to reform them. in depth, and we have to put trade rules which benefit us, and we have to work together across the continent and try to find a way to embed this small growth in the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last point about really African countries working, collaborating to address this challenge, especially to navigate global geopolitics beneficially, I think is very, very important. But there are also growing global initiatives around addressing social, environmental, and governance challenges. So, and there is concern like this is becoming a fatigue for those who are actually supposed to implement ESG standards. So, Shay, what is your take on fatigue? Is it necessary? And how to reduce fatigue? At the same time, make sure that those ESG standards are actually effective in protecting, society.
I think first in fact, I think I did one like the mining communities, an organization that locally operate in that state. We need to advocate for a global governance of the minerals rather than fell into another trap of being convinced of certain factors. The ESG standards, they are an agenda that has been set by a consulting firm. Because many investors now, genuinely so, that is why we are also CMB work in South Africa. Organizations are saying they cannot be part of the history where they are violating the rights and human rights of Africans and other people in the global south. So the ESG standards, in a way, is a pressure from most companies to want to appease to investors to say we are doing the right thing of the community. But the red flag is when they are being done by organizations that, for example, have been called in South Africa in so-called state capture. The consulting firms, even globally, that have helped this organization to cover environmental issues, and now the champions of environment and social issues. And for that, I think we need to be careful about it. And the fact that they are no consistent, they are different. I mean, every company will have its own rating company. Even the child of the second largest company, DFC, China Mobile Board, has a company that is rating them. I think in 2023 we put them to AA rating. Anyone who comes from the DRC or understand the issues in the ground in the DRC knows the atrocity that these companies are doing. But the company, in its annual report, they have wonderful pictures and rating about what the good that they're doing in the country so that investors then can invest. But in reality, it is not the case. But I think in the room we have organizations that have the interest of all these communities and we need to find partners. We have EMA, which is the initiative of mining assurance, which actually will add the value chain and then make sure that people actually are looked after. And for that, I think we need to find those kind of partners and push for a global governance linked to SD 17 of the United Nations. So the ESG from where I stand, I really don't support them, and I think that.
Thank you very much. Someone want to add on the
Yes, I can add a bit on the environmental governance and social standards. I think most of our countries have domesticated these, like, for example, for us, our Environmental Management Act provides for environmental impact assessment. And within this process is a very key component of public hearing. This gives an opportunity for the communities to understand what type of development is coming. They interact with the developers. So this is where issues of if they'll be need for the community to move, where will they move? Have they agreed? So the issue of FP comes in there so that the communities are prepared for the project. They can agree or disagree at that stage. But again, we are finding that most of these policies are just like decorative documents, and on the ground they do not work. So you find that because the multinationals or the developers come with a certain favor from our governments, they can skip a process and it will not be a problem. Because if we have the environmental report or the environmental social impact report, it is very easy to hold the developer accountable because you just go back to what they have put in place and what they have agreed. So again, for me, I think we are looking at two groups of people here. We are looking at the people that we are calling the artisanal small-scale miners, those who are in the informal type of mining, and we are looking at those who are affected by mining. So for me, I'll take back maybe because we have been blessed with a lot of theological lessons as we started the army. I'll give a reference to the people of Israel when they worked as slaves in Egypt. If freedom has got no transition or plan, if there's no investment in the plan for freedom, it will not be appreciated. So when the Israelites left Egypt, they rebelled because they thought they were better off where they are coming from. They were able to eat, and now they didn't see where Moses was taking them because there were struggles. So even for the artisanal or I'm trying to avoid illegal miners because calling them illegal has already brought a lot of discrimination. So the informal miners, if we are going to fight for their freedom, but we have no plan for them, they will not appreciate it because why they are in that situation already is because they're getting something out of it. For them, they are seeing that if they can go underground and get a block of copper, they will sell and have something. So if we go in as civil society and say, can we do everything by the book so that we protect your lives and you have decent jobs? If we don't have a plan, it will not be appreciated. So for those who are affected, as we are speaking as civil society organizations, our leaders have also met here in Cape Town. They are also meeting for the Africa Mining Indaba. This is where they're signing contracts with the people that will come back and violate the rights of the communities that we are talking about. But we are not there, we don't know what they are talking about. So we feel that accountability should start with our leaders from the platforms that we have. What is the African Union saying about protecting the communities? What is SADC saying about protecting Southern Africa? Because if we don't have this commitment, that is why you see that most cases are taken to the international court for a community to be compensated. It will go maybe to a European court. It will not go to an African court. And lastly, the opportunities that are there, there is a collaboration. For example, we've got the Lobito corridor. There is also an MOU signed between DRC and Zambia with America for the EVs. And also we've got concepts like vital remediation, which we can use to repair the degraded land, but also provide entrepreneurship for the communities because they can plant trees, which they can sell to the mining companies to help repair their land and use it for agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
1 minute silence.
Fraction of a minute. I want to get the views also from the audience.
I've been rushing. I was just about to say, like ESG, there is the G, and ESG is tending to backslide really worldwide in terms of funding. For instance, funders seems no longer interested in funding the G, but the G, the governance, index, anti-corruption. And this is really something very important in the mining sector, including in the critical minerals. That's what I wanted to say. So we have to be, ready to push for more, because if we don't build transparency, accountability, and integrity of the funding in the critical minerals era, that would be a disaster for our communities. And final thing is encouraging you to read two documents. The first one, a research that we have published, published what we pay on value addition in Africa, how to make that happen We have proposed a lot of policy recommendations. Please read if you're interested on the topic, how to make the most of those resources while safeguarding our communities. And the second read is a joint publication that we made in the NRGI, which was just out on one of the actionable recommendations of UNSG Critical Minerals Panel. We were focusing on layer 1 on value chain, diversification, equality. There is a set of recommendations that we just published. Please read it online, find it and read it if you're also interested in this aspect of equality creation.
Thank you very much. I'm mindful of time. We have 10 minutes and I just want to be fair to the audience. So I'll pick one question from my extreme left, and then the middle, and then my extreme right, and then I think we should be able to wind that up. So any question from there? Yes, the first hand up. Mike?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to give my comments. Firstly, thank you very much to the panel. My name is Anisha Pagano from Western Science. So we are one of the largest ESG rating companies globally, the largest ESG provider in the world for Africa. And so it was very interesting to hear about the greenwashing, the brownwashing, the greenwashing that everyone is talking about today. What is important out of this is that Africa has to use the data to actually determine the pathways. Without the data, we actually flying blind. And what we've seen in South Africa, as well as we cover quite I think over 9 countries in Africa with ESG data, that most listed companies or issuers are not taking the data seriously. They are greenwashing, and I think a lot of the participants spoke about the data being presented or the information being presented as if they are doing good things for communities, as well as they're doing good things in the mining industry and as well as in the environment. But the truth be said, most of these institutions, we have over 1,000 issuers out of 2,000 issuers on the African continent. Less than 30% of these issuers actually project their data correctly, show the accuracy because it's a point-in-time data, or the data is not depicted in the right format. There's a whole lot of narrative in terms of saying that they're doing good things, but not reporting the empirical information so that you can actually start planning forward. Now, when we developed this model, it's using AI and machine learning. When we started showing this to the rest of the world in terms of the data that is sitting in Africa, most institutions internationally, including asset managers, did not want to use the data. They said, let's use proxy data of the global north to basically showcase Africa. And this is extremely important, especially for this particular.
Excuse me. Can you make the intervention short, because I already mentioned time. So if you have a question to ask, then we can have a conversation about that very important point. But let us have a conversation after. Sure.
I think what's very important is to actually understand that as activists that are sitting in this room, that data is what is going to allow you to actually have a voice and a seat at the table.
Thank you. So the question of having data, evidence-based, yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Mine is just an appreciation I'm Chief Executive Officer of Children's Community National Trust, with the drivers have been mine in Zimbabwe. And I take note of the emphasis being put in this army on the shift from voice of the voiceless to power to the communities. This makes us communities feel very much accommodated in this forum. Thank you very much. I noticed great emphasis on this in the theological reflection, as well as presentations yesterday, especially by Oxfam. I would like to applaud, especially our supervising CSOs, particularly Stella and Energy, for serving this role. I think this government that we communities quite appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was our appreciation, and I really appreciate that. Two hands there.
My name is from DRC, where people are really experiencing geopolitical competition around access to critical minerals. I think yesterday, Dr. Cloud mentions the Lobito corridor, which is one example of that competition. So my question is, how to ensure that African leaders can understand that geopolitical competition and act in terms of collective and collaborative ways in the continent? Because we have been analyzing how African countries are dealing with Western countries, with China, different ways. Yes, is an example where you have China, you have Western companies. So how we can make African leaders understand those issues and ensure that they can act collaboratively, regionally or continentally. We have the African Mining Division. What are African countries which are implementing this? That's the first question. The second question is about the FPIC. This is a key question about the rights for community to say no. My question is, what kind of reforms we need, social and legal reforms we need to make this effective at community level? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Overflow.
Temporary delay. That is the last question, then we'll come back to the panelists.
Check, I'm told that there's a question in the overflow room, and apparently they are part of this conference, and they'll be left out.
Sorry.
There's a hand in the overflow room.
Oh, the overflow room. Oh.
Yes. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Brown Mutawa, and I need to declare that I'm not part, I don't come from the archives, so as a young chap who's new and representing the youth, I have just two uninformed questions that I would like to ask. One is, I am told that 60 to 70% of our bodies is occupied by water. And it is interesting that in all the critical discussion that we had on water is not considered to be one. And I am told that mine is one of the companies that are polluting the water system. Whether you talk of atmospheric water from the rain, you talk of our rivers, or you talk of aquifers.
Excuse me, please, can you pose that question directly and ask who wants to respond to that when we are running out of time?
Okay, the question is, could possibly one of the panelists just indicate water was one of the minerals? The last one would be, we have that Admiral Mitchell Chabalala is in the room, and I'm told that she recently went to the leaders with Traore, and one would love to know what discussion we can have around the issues of critical minerals and how.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very last. Bear with me. I know there are many questions. The lady in green.
Thank you very much. I want to speak in my colonizer language because you are forcing me to speak in your colonizer language. So I'm going to ask in Portuguese, so if you understand, you understand. Mas a minha questão é simples, because, também porque nós temos algumas pessoas que estão a assistir em português. Quantas comunidades é que já tiveram a oportunidade de usufruir destes benefícios que nós estamos aqui a dizer? Vários exemplos que não são usufruídos em lado nenhum, mas não nos preocupa que não temos muitos exemplos de comunidades que não fazem parte das decisões, que não são informadas previamente, e agora com esta questão de transição energética estamos todos muito agitados com isto, mas a questão também é que nós não fazemos parte como a sociedade civil, como a sociedade civil geral africana, não temos esse peso nas administrações. Então, se não nos preocupa esta situação de não termos um exemplo, pode ser a minha ignorância, é a primeira vez que eu estou aqui, mas eu gostaria de saber se há um exemplo de comunidade que conseguiu tudo isto que existe mecanismos de leis e que nós nos podemos inspirar nesse exemplo. Obrigada.
Obrigado. Thank you so much. We don't have a question time. I'm not going to respond to each specific question that has been raised, but in the last interventions, less than a minute on each of the panelists, there is a question that you want to respond to. Please pick it up and respond quickly, and then give your final point. After that, we'll close up.
I think I will respond to Comrade Ram about the water not being critical mineral. To start with, like I've indicated, the concept of critical minerals is not our concept. I mean, an example is, like I said, the European Union that has classified certain minerals as critical, but it is not Africa to say, so they are not going to export water from here. EU countries, they have identified minerals that they see as fit for them to use in components. So, like I said, we really need to be, because for a mineral to become critical, there is a process that needs to be done. Look at the criticality of that minerals for your economy and for your manufacturing, which we haven't done. For example, South Africa and other African countries. So I don't think it's even feasible for us to identify certain minerals are critical. They are not critical because they are not critical for us. They are critical for those who classify them as critical because they have intentions for them. That is why you will not find that particularly in China. China, which is has a quasi-monopoly of the whole value chain of renewables and lithium-ion batteries, but you will not find them to be about critical minerals because they are intentional, they are clear, they have one ministry that actually looks at the whole value chain and then using different expertise. So in South Africa, we have almost 19 policies that talks about just transition, and they are competing amongst themselves. Everyone organizes his own thing and brings his own people and talk about just transition, but we have no vision on how we are going to benefit the minerals that we have. So that I contribute to that.
Thank you very much. So the criticality, whether Africa should define these as critical minerals, because if you are a producer, from a producer perspective, it's not critical, but it's strategic. So
yes.
One could think about whether these resources, how strategic these resources are, because if you are a producer, you don't just supply anything.
Okay. I'd like to speak very briefly on the two questions from our colleagues. It's not that our rulers don't understand, everything at stake around the deals, the geopolitics, etc. They perfectly understand it, but they choose to ignore them. That's just the thing, I know, and this is my really critical opinion, if you want. And they are aware of everything, but they choose, they come, they choose to go with those countries who are going to oppress us because of vested interests. What is the solution? It's for the people to organize really and to reverse the power. This is how I can see it. But on the continent, not just in one country. And there are ways for doing so. Once again, our reports on value chain. That's something. And on the second question, 30 seconds, Silas. I think the right to say no has to be entrenched in each constitution, because this way we can embed it in the local legal mechanisms. And then we need strategic litigation to go coupled with it as well, and the right to say no is violated. But the thing is, it needs an independent judiciary, which most of our countries are also lacking, if I'm not mistaken. So once again, we need to reform that first, and we need a regional and international mechanism for judging those questions when the rights of communities everywhere around the world are violated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Silas. Under a minute, I'll look at free, fair, and informed consent, the entity that we're talking about. For me, I feel Africa has no longer got dictatorship. When we talk about democracy, again, points to power to the people, because the people elect their leaders, they give them the power. They also have the power and rights to question them how they're using that power. So if it's going to be effective, we have to understand that we as a people have the power to question our governments, to hold them accountable, and to promote good governance. I'll just quickly give an example. What happened in Zambia and Wakula, where I'm coming from. A Vietnamese investor came looking for 6 million hectares of land with citizenship on top, no taxes, and had the sovereignty to grow in rice. And we engaged with the chiefs, we came together as a people, and we said no. So that investment didn't go along. So that just shows that as a people, when we come together, collective voices, understanding our rights, we can say no. Thank you very much.
The next question? Yeah. No, thank you very much. Sorry, excuse me. It's conversation to continue, so we can't finish everything. So thank you very much, the audience, for your contribution. And thank you very much, my panelists. Please join me to applaud our panelists.
Thank you so much, Silas, and the rest of the panel for that insightful conversation. I know there's a lot of contributions within the group. There's a lot of questions that need to be asked. I'm sure you can engage with the panelists over lunch, as we're going to be breaking off for lunch. You can find time for those engagements to happen. We apologize, there isn't enough time to ask all the questions that we would like to ask and to make all the contributions we would like to make, and we'll try and make that adjustments to ensure there's more time for engagement. So we have come to the end of the morning. It's been a very inspiring morning. Are we here? Thank you. We have come to the end of this part of the day. It's been very inspiring. And as announced earlier, right from lunch, we will go into the idea lab. So I'll quickly run you through. We will quickly run you through the idea labs that we have after lunch. So from here, we'll go down to get the group photo. The volunteers outside, they're wearing blue t-shirts to guide you where we're going to get the photo. And then from the photo, we will have our lunch, then go straight into the idea labs. So we have a lab being hosted by the Zimbabwe Coalition on Debt and Development, ZIMCOD, Transparency International Zimbabwe, Green Governance Zimbabwe, and Center for Natural Resource Governance, as well as SAPSIM. This lab is being hosted in Central 1, and the title of the session is Beneath the Surface, Exposing Inequality and Human Rights Abuses in Southern Africa's Natural Resource Governance Sector. We have another lab being hosted by Trust Africa, And the title of the session is Amplifying African Voices, Advancing Accountability and Economic Justice. It will be held in Queens 1. And then we have another session being hosted by AFRODAT on African Mining Vision, A Government on the Right Track. This will be held in Central 2. We have another session being hosted by the Stop the Bleeding campaign on community storytelling, advocacy owners to owners of the natural resources. This will be in Central 3. And then Southern African Trust is hosting their Idea Lab on reclaiming earth, restoring balance and care in the extractive sector, Afro-ecofeminist approaches to mining sector transformation. This is held in Queens 2. And then we have the final session by Haki Rasi Limali, which will be held in Harlem, in the Harlem room. Alternatives to oil and gas for a sustainable energy future in Africa. So these are the idea labs that we have. When you come back from lunch, you'll be able to see outside. They should be beamed out there for you to be able to know which room to go into. I just want to recognize also the presence of our online participants. I think we've had 50 people so far. We haven't forgotten about you. We know you're out there, and thank you so much for joining us. So please, we can break off for, I'll announce the idea labs for tomorrow. We can break off for lunch, but first let's have the photo taken. Thank you.
Podemos combinar com